in one room in my whole life. Thank you. A special shout out to everybody who has adopted a healthier lifestyle that's kind not just to your coronary arteries, but also to all the animals you share the planet with, and make the planet breathe a little bit easier. And those of you who have been able to drag your family and friends along with you, that's also good. I want to say a special shout out. We have a program at the Physicians Committee called Food for Life program, where we teach instructors to bring this way of eating to their own communities. And it's a really cool thing, because people are nervous about making a diet change, and then they have a reluctant spouse who's even more nervous. And so if they can get some instruction together, that's a good thing. And it started in the US, but we now have instructors all over the world, including here. And one of our Food for Life instructors is here. There's Allie. Allie, stand up. Would you stand up? This is Allie. Allie lives in Devon, and if you hook up with Allie afterwards, we can have a class of up to about 5,000 people, right? And I have videos that I will talk to you with, and then Allie's going to do all the difficult part, which is the cooking. So thank you, Allie. Thanks for being here. Okay. I want to talk about cheese. In 2015, the University of Michigan, researchers interviewed 384 people, and they asked them, what foods give you problems? And what they meant by problems was foods that you just can't stop eating. You're already full, but you just keep eating. So you have trouble cutting down, or you've had enough and you just lose control. Well, number 5 was ice cream. Number 4 was cookies. Number 3 was chips. Number 2 was chocolate, and number 1 was pizza. And I'm going to say it's not the sun-dried tomatoes. There is something about that 3/8 of an inch of yellow asphalt that's melting all over the pizza, onto your fingers, into your lap, into your coronary arteries, that makes pizza really a problem. It's the cheese. And we've done lots of research studies where we put people on vegan diets to improve their diabetes or whatever it is. And the one food that people have the most trouble giving up seems to be cheese. Do you know what I'm talking about? So, why am I talking about cheese to a vegan audience? Well, the reason is all of you know people who are not yet vegan. And so I want to share with you some ideas to take back with you, if you don't mind, okay? So, these are all things that I grew up with as a kid in North Dakota, and we all thought were swell. But what is cheese anyway? Let's take a trip to Wisconsin. And early in the morning, the milk trucks arrive. And the milk gets poured into this sort of wading pool kind of thing. And then you add bacteria. What are the bacteria for? Why am I adding bacteria to the milk to make cheese? It's got to make it ferment, right? It's going to give it that funky smell. So what bacteria do I use? Not just any bacteria. Between your toes, there are bacteria called Brevibacteria, B-R-E-V-I, Brevibacteria. And have you ever had a roommate who didn't wash for an extra special long time? What you are smelling is the fermentation products of Brevibacteria, and that happens to be exactly what goes into Munster, or Limburger, or others. Yes, that's right. And then you next add rennet. Now, what's rennet for? That's to make it solidified and clot. And what does rennet come from? It comes from the 4th stomach of a slaughtered calf. Now, most dairies nowadays no longer use animal rennet. They use a genetically engineered rennet. They don't write that on the package because they know you wouldn't buy it. Many still use the animal rennet, others use genetically engineered. And then you drain off the whey, which is the liquidy part that has the lactose, sugar, and so forth, and you're left with solid cheese. And then you dump a bunch of salt on top, and the salt stops the fermentation and holds it into place. So that's cheese.
So what have I just done? I've increased the calories from milk to cheese. I've increased the protein, I've increased the cholesterol, I've increased the fat, and the sodium just went through the roof. Okay, so could this affect my weight? Well, yes. What causes weight problems anyway? If you talk to people, if you talk to parents, well, why are kids getting so heavy these days? Am I wrong? This is what they're going to say. It's too much sugar. Too many sodas. If kids just wouldn't have sodas, they'd be fine. Well, I'm going to put a big question mark on that. I'm not suggesting that Coca-Cola is health food, but I am going to question whether this is the reason for obesity. And here's why. This is the United States, but we see it everywhere else. Sweeteners were rising. People were eating more and more and more sugar until about 1999, and that was the year when people put so much bottled water on the convenience store shelves that it pushed the soda off, and bottled water has been more and more common. Soda consumption has been falling for 20 years. Have we conquered obesity? It's getting worse and worse, and it really follows the cheese. Cheese is going up, 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 up. The average American in 2018 consumes about 35 pounds per person per year. So where are the calories? This will be on the test. A gram of sugar has 4 calories. A gram of fat has only 9 calories, no matter what kind of fat it is. So the leanest beef is about 29% fat, skinless chicken breast about 23%. Fish vary, some lower, some higher. Broccoli and beans and rice, these are all low-fat foods, which is part of why vegans are skinny, because they're eating healthy, low-fat foods, and every gram of fat has how many calories? 9 calories, that's right, so you're not eating so many calories. So where is cheese? Is cheese more like beef, or is it more like rice? 70% fat. If it were any worse, it would be Vaseline. There is Coke Zero, but there is no Cheddar Zero. Sorry. Can't be. It's always got calories in a lot of them. So, beans and vegetables also have fiber, lots of fiber. Plant roughage has no calories, and it fills you up. And that helps you stay slim too. So, if I eat some baked beans, it's got 5 grams of fiber, and broccoli has fiber, and apples and oranges and bananas and brown rice. But cheese is not a plant. It doesn't have any fiber at all, so it's loaded with fat, it's loaded with calories, and you get every last calorie that you're eating. There is no fiber to dilute it. So, how about sodium? Remember how in the cheese factory they're dumping salt on the cheese? Well, sodium, will sodium affect your health in some way? Okay, so you gotta raise your blood pressure. Oh, it could be bad for your heart. So an orange has about 1 milligram of sodium, an apple has about 2, brown rice has 20, a potato has 13, potato chips, 330 milligrams in a serving. However, cheddar has 350. Worse than chips, if it's Edam, it's 500. Velveeta is this cheese that people in America eat. It melts all over things. It's got 800 milligrams of sodium in one single serving. So if you want to keep your kids away from sodium, cheese is the place to start. All right, researchers looked at who does better. At the Adventist Health Study, researchers studied Seventh-day Adventists, and the reason they did this is that Seventh-day Adventists, by church teachings, are supposed to be healthy. Non-smokers, non-drinkers, avoid caffeine, and don't eat meat. But some of them follow that advice and some do not. And so that gives us a natural experiment of following a group of people who avoid tobacco, but some eat meat, some don't, some eat dairy, some don't. So if you look at those, you're familiar with body mass index? It's your body weight, but it's adjusted for how tall you are. And the people who are not vegetarian are the heaviest. That's the red bar on the left. And then the orangish bar is the second one. That's semi-vegetarian, people who eat meat but less than once a week. They're a little skinnier. Then the pesco, vegetarian pesco is? Fish. Okay, they're eating fish but no other meat. They're a little slimmer, but not much. And then the lacto-ovo vegetarian, that's the green bar. That blue bar, I have to tell my patients that a vegan is not a person from the planet Venus. They just happen to be the skinniest people around. So now, I want to focus on those last two. The difference between an ovo-lacto-vegetarian and a vegan is cheese, for the most part. And the difference in weight is between 10 and 15 pounds. So that added little bit of cheese is fatty, okay? All right, so can you get hooked on this stuff? Yeah. Can you? Did you ever know anybody who was hooked on cheese? Was it you? Then write it down. Okay, well, there's no reasons why. You remember in the cheese factory, they put salt all over everything, and then it's also really kind of greasy. And that combination of greasy, salty things, that's why we like chips. And onion rings and things like that. But there's more to it than that. There is something called casomorphins. Have you heard of these? Yes. The casein protein. Casein is the main protein in cow's milk. And like all proteins, it's a string of beads. Each bead is an amino acid, and they come apart in your digestive tract, and they pass into your blood. Except that casein doesn't behave quite that way. When it breaks up, it releases some individual amino acids, but it also releases a whole bunch in little strings that are called casein-derived morphine-like compounds. These go to your brain, and they attach to the very same receptors in the brain that morphine or heroin attach to, okay? And this will not be on the test. This is the chemical structure, but they're not super strong. The strongest one is called morphoceptin, and it has about 1/10 the brain binding power compared to pharmacy-grade pure morphine. So it's not strong enough to get you arrested, but it's just strong enough to keep you hooked and to make people think, I don't think I could ever give up the cheese, that's why. All right, so there it is. There's your friend morphoceptin. Could this affect my health? Maybe. This is Catherine. Catherine was an aerospace engineer. She was from Louisiana, and she was actually in the U.S. Air Force when they went into Iraq in 2003. And when you are in a war zone and you eat what the Army gives you, you don't gain weight. And she was working hard over there, and when her tour of duty came to an end, she got on a plane and she went back to Louisiana. And her friends greeted her and said, Catherine, what did you miss when you were over in Iraq? And she said, the thing I really missed was all those American foods, especially all the cheesy things. And she loved all this stuff. And in fact, for one of her birthdays, a friend of hers knew that she liked those macaroni and cheese dinners and gave her an entire case of 48 packs of macaroni and cheese, which she dutifully ate every single day for 48 days. She gained weight, but she also started to develop some health problems. She started to get some pain in her abdomen. And as time went on, this abdominal pain got worse and worse and worse. And she went to the doctor, and the doctor did a laparoscopy. A laparoscopy is where you make a little incision and you put a scope in the abdomen and you look around, and the doctor saw all of these cells that didn't belong there. This is endometriosis. These are cells from the uterine lining that have escaped, and they're now implanting, and they grow and shrink and grow and shrink every month. And it causes terrible pain, and it causes infertility, and often the answer to it has to be a hysterectomy. So every month she was getting worse and worse, and her pain was intense, and there were days where she just couldn't get out of bed. And the doctor said, well, we can always schedule your hysterectomy. She said, well, I'm a young woman. My husband and I were hoping to have a child. I'd like to put that off. And the doctor said, okay, but eventually she realized she couldn't function, and she scheduled the operation. But as fate would have it, a friend said, Catherine, why don't you try a diet change? Because cancer patients have been changing their diets to deal with hormonal conditions for a long, long time. They get the animal products out, they keep the oils low, they bring in the vegetables, and it calms down hormone-related conditions like breast cancer. So she said, what have I got to lose? I'll try it. She went on a totally low-fat vegan diet, And almost right away, she started feeling better. Better energy, she started losing weight, and that abdominal pain started to go away a little bit. And week by week, she was feeling better and better and better, and she wasn't having any trouble getting off to work. And the surgeon said, we've got to do a follow-up laparoscopy. So she goes into the hospital, and the doctor made a little incision and started looking around her abdomen and looking around and looking around, and the doctor then sewed her up and sent her to the recovery room. And the doctor went out into the waiting room and said to her husband, this is remarkable. Her endometriosis is practically gone. And her husband said, well, I'm not super surprised because she went vegan several weeks ago. She's been feeling better day by day by day, and the pain has just really diminished. The doctor said, no. Foods do not cause endometriosis, and there is no way that a diet change is going to make it go away. There's only one possible explanation. This must be a miracle. Miracle or not. Catherine's pain went away. She lost about 55 pounds. She felt great, and she has 3 kids. And Catherine, she joined our Food for Life program and now teaches other women how they can take back their own biology and be able to be in control of their own health. Okay, so I was talking about hormones and milk. Let me walk you through a few things. A lot of people have the idea that cows give milk. Well, first of all, cows don't give milk at all. Somebody takes it, but they don't even produce milk until they have become pregnant and given birth. I know that sounds obvious to all of us, but I know there are people who think you just press a button on the side of a cow and out comes milk. They have to have been pregnant and they have to give birth, and then the cow will make milk. So to keep milk production high, farmers impregnate their cows every year. Not personally, but the cows are impregnated annually, and their gestation is about 9 months, and they're impregnated every year, and so 9 months out of every 12 a cow is pregnant. They're being milked during much of that time, and a pregnant cow makes estradiol, that's estrogen, a female sex hormone, and it gets concentrated in the milk. And then when you turn milk into cheese, it's concentrated further because it goes with the fat. And researchers have looked not just at women, but at men. Researchers went into Rochester, Minnesota, or Rochester, New York, and they looked at men in a fertility clinic, and they did sperm counts on them. And it turned out that those men who consumed the most cheese had the lowest sperm counts. I mean, the fewest sperm, the worst sperm motility and morphology, meaning the traces of hormones, female hormones that get into a man's body, could be enough to interfere with something fragile like fertility. Well, is that true? We're not sure, but researchers have been thinking maybe it is. And what was even more worrisome was a study in California. Here they're looking at not just men's sperm counts, they're looking at women with breast cancer. All of the women had breast cancer already. And if you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, you just got one question on your mind. Is this cancer ever going to come back? Because if it does, it might kill you. Well, what they found was that those women who consumed the most high-fat dairy servings, that's the red bar. The red bar is those women who consume 1 or more servings of high-fat dairy a day, that's butter and cheese. They had a 49% higher risk of dying of their cancer compared to women who generally avoided it. So what we're starting to think is, wait a minute, there's just a trace of hormones in the cheese. But maybe it's enough that it can affect a man's fertility and a woman's hormone balance such that cancer can be much more aggressive. So it raises the question, if you've got a 7-year-old daughter and you're going to the store to buy things, would you buy a product that had sex hormones in it and put it on her plate? Or if you've got a 7-year-old son, would you do that? Or if you have somebody you love, or yourself, would you want to be ingesting these things? This is the question that we need to come up with. All right, let's talk about asthma. If you ever knew anybody who had asthma, it's like a vice around the lungs. And in the United States, 9 people every day die of this disease because they can't breathe. They're out exercising, or an allergy comes up and they suddenly can't breathe. Their lungs go into a vice-like state. and they're with inhalers, and they have emergency medicines that they use all the time. Let me introduce you to Chad. This is Chad. He lived on the east coast of the United States, and he and his brother were very big in sports. They loved playing baseball and football and basketball, except that Chad could never get through a game because he would collapse with an asthma attack just about every time. So he just lived with us, and when he was about 18 years old, a friend of his said, "Chad, did you ever get away from dairy?" Chad said, "What are you talking about?" A lot of people with asthma have found that when they avoid cheese and milk and ice cream, their lungs do better. And so he said, "I don't know, let me give it a try." So Chad went completely vegan. No meat, no dairy, no eggs, nothing. And within about 3 months, his asthma was completely gone. And so he actually joined I don't know if you know the Ruby's online cooking school. It's the biggest online cooking school in the world. He now teaches vegan cooking for other people who want to conquer their health issues. So this raises the question, could dairy products contribute to asthma? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's Google it. So I'm going to go on Google, I'm going to type in asthma dairy, and let's see what I come up with. Okay, there we are. Right on the homepage of the National Asthma Council Australia, they tackle this issue head on. They say, dairy foods have often been suggested as a common trigger for asthma. Okay, we're getting somewhere. But there is little scientific evidence to support this myth. Unfortunately, most Australians are missing out on the health benefits that come from consuming milk, cheese, and yogurt, as they don't include enough dairy foods in their diet. This is starting to smell a little bit funny, isn't it? Let's go back. I want to check their sponsor page. Okay, so there they are. There's Dairy Australia and 5 drug companies. So Dairy Australia makes money if you eat cheese and milk, and the drug companies make money as long as you still have asthma. And I hate to say this, but we see this with many health organizations. They have become for sale. And so they are not there to stop heart disease or breast cancer. They are there to sell medications to deal with it. And they end up softening what they should say. A heart association should be telling you, get the animal products off your plate. That's the only source of cholesterol. That's the major source of bad fat. A vegan diet is the way to reverse this disease. A cancer organization should say, get the animal products off your plate. You don't need them. You need high fiber vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans. We're not going to prevent every last case of cancer, but this is the way to start. And this is also the way for people who have cancer already. But these organizations very soon start accumulating donations from corporations that say, couldn't you soft pedal that part a little bit? And this is the way they go. And I wish I could tell you that this is going to change in the near future. It's not. Unfortunately, it's up to us to realize what's going on. All right. You know, I've written now about 20 books on various kinds of nutrition. Well, we're still young, there's more to come. But in all of these books, I've talked about human health, but I wrote a book called The Cheese Trap, because I was so struck by all this, and in this book, unlike the other ones, I decided to say a word about her, because all the stuff that I didn't really know growing up in North Dakota, I thought maybe readers didn't know much about it either. So if you don't mind, I'd just like to share with you a couple of facts that kind of surprised me. The first, I already hinted at, the cows need to be impregnated and have to give birth to produce milk. Well, how does the cow get pregnant? She does not get pregnant with soft music and Barry Manilow records and chocolate and roses out on the hillside somewhere, or in a sleazy Holiday Inn. No. The way this is going to happen is a farm hand takes a glove. The glove goes on his left hand and it goes all the way up to his shoulder. I'll show you how this is used. I'm going to show you some pictures from the United Nations. The United Nations makes guides for farmers all around the world. And they're made with mostly diagrams because they're for low literacy. So this is how we do artificial insemination for our dairy cows. You take your left hand, you put the glove on all the way up to your shoulder, you insert your left hand into the cow's rectum up to your elbow. You then, through the rectal wall, you can feel the uterus, and you hold it steady with your left hand. With your right hand, you take what looks like a knitting needle and jam it through the cervix and insert semen that you took from a bull. These animals are not volunteers. However, she is not going to object because she's chained by the neck and can't stop this from happening. You then impregnate her this way, and you write down a date. Oh, this is the way it looks. You then write the date on her side, and 9 months later she's going to give birth. And despite the fact that she did not ask to become pregnant, when she sees her baby in the hay, and her little baby looks up at her and blinks his eyes and sees his mother for the first time, she looks at her baby and she starts to lick her baby and clean up her baby and starts to protect her baby. And all the farmhands gather around and they say, you know, this gets me every time. It's just such a beautiful thing. Wait a minute. This is a dairy. If the baby takes the mother's milk, what are we going to sell? So they have an implement that takes care of this problem. It's called a wheelbarrow. And you pick up the baby by the chest, and you put the baby calf, the calf into the wheelbarrow, and you take the baby away. And there is no bond in nature stronger than a mother and her child. And as that baby is being taken away, she will fight. She walks behind and she nudges and says, excuse me, what are you doing? And she will follow until you slam a gate in her face, and she will stand right there and she's going to call out for her baby, and the baby will call out to her. And the baby, if the baby is a male calf is not going to live. He's going to become veal. If the baby is a female, she has a future ahead of her here at the dairy. So we're going to keep her drinking milk replacer in a little hutch like that by herself. She'll never see her mother again. If she's going to have horns that grow, so they will be removed with a process called dehorning, or if you get it early enough, you scrape them right out of the skull. It's called disbudding. And veterinarians will always say, if you see that done once, you never want to see it again. But this is everything I've described is absolutely routine. Okay? So, as I was writing this book, I came across a news story from Massachusetts. Strange noises coming from High Road near Sunshine Dairy Farm Monday night and into yesterday morning prompted local police to alert residents that there's nothing spooky or scary going on. According to Newbury Police Sergeant Patty Fisher, the noises are coming from mother cows who are lamenting the separation from their calves. It happens every year at the same time. And the point that I'm making is this is absolutely routine. Every glass of milk and every slice of cheese came from an operation in which the animals were impregnated, separated from their infants, and it goes on every single year. Then, after about 4 years, the farmer, who is a good business person, says, here's how much feed I have to put into you in order to get milk out. You're not as productive as you were when you were 1 or 2. How about if I sell you to slaughter, and we put your daughter in your place? We can impregnate her and we'll get more milk out of her. And that's exactly what they do. In the United States, 200,000 dairy cows are slaughtered every month. The biggest meat exporting country in the world is India, where the meat is not consumed locally. I'm talking about water buffaloes producing milk and cheese and paneer, and then the animals are sold off for slaughter, and the meat is exported. Am I cheering you up? The point is this: there will always be this kind of cruel operation as long as people think, I just have to have that cheese sandwich. But now I'm happy to tell you that we can make choices. If it sounds a little bit creepy to artificially inseminate a mother cow year after year after year, and then take away her baby and then finally kill her and do the same thing to her offspring, it makes you think there's got to be something else I can eat instead. Is there? Of course there is. When if I'm going to have feta on my salad, forget it. I can put chunks of avocado. That gives you the same mouthfeel. It's perfectly fine. When I was a kid growing up in North Dakota, we had grilled cheese, and we never heard of a hummus sandwich. But this is the modern age. There are plenty of healthy things to put between bread. And I can have that pizza covered with cheese, but right next to it in the store is that one that's totally vegan, and they both taste fine. And you can make it right at home. And our secret ingredient is nutritional yeast, which all of your omnivorous friends, they say, where do you find that? Isn't that the bodybuilder's thing? And the answer is it's great. It makes everything smell like cheese. And have you ever made tofu ricotta? You know, your friends all think it's they will swear to you it's the real thing. You know, it works really, really well. Okay, and of course there are now vegan cheeses. And by the way, my friend Miyoko, who makes vegan cheeses, always reminds me, don't make this a major food group. This is just a special occasion nibbling food for when friends come over. You know, you still want to follow a diet of beans and grains and vegetables and fruits and simple things, okay? So all this is going to raise a question. Aren't we supposed to eat cheese? I mean, aren't we supposed to eat meat? Aren't human beings carnivores by nature? Well, let's look at this. If you look in France and in Spain, on the cave walls, you will see paintings that suggest that somebody was optimistic one afternoon, thinking they might have a successful hunt, suggesting that maybe we are carnivores. Except if you look a little bit further back, what we see, if you look at our primate cousins, the chimpanzees and gorillas and orangutans and bonobos who make up this family of great apes along with human beings, they're pretty much herbivores. They don't eat cheese at all, and they're really not doing meat with very rare exceptions. And if you don't believe it, I have 3 simple scientific tests that I'd like to share with you. The first is the dental test. Do you know the dental test? No? What you do is you wait for your cat to yawn, and you notice that those razor blades in your cat's mouth, they are designed to kill prey, to remove the hide, and pull the muscles off the skeleton. Now, go into your bathroom and turn on the light, and walk up to the mirror and open your mouth. And what you discover is that your canine teeth are no longer than your incisors. And that change occurred at least 3.5 million years ago. In other words, that's the dentition of an herbivore. Okay, test number 2, the bunny test. Do you know the bunny test? You do? You take a bunny. And you put the bunny in front of your cat. The cat may be only 8 months old and has never seen a bunny, but the cat's brain is hardwired to devour that bunny. You can take the same bunny and put it in front of a baby or a toddler, and your toddler will just say, bunny. Not in a million years would your child say, I shall eat him, this is my destiny. That doesn't happen. Your child is an herbivore. You've got to acculturate your child to doing that. Okay, do you know the box test? No? You take a box. When the box had electronics in it, like a computer or something like that, and you search around, and in the bottom of the box, you find something called silica gel. What's that there for? It's to keep it dry, right? Well, the makers of silica gel are very wise. On every packet, they print 3 simple words. Do not eat. What does this tell us? Human beings are naturally herbivores, but we put any darn thing in our mouths unless you tell us not to. So we think it's totally normal to eat meat and eat milk and eat ice cream and all this stuff. It's all kind of crazy. It's just culture. Now, this is a carnivore, or at least an omnivore, and he has a good nose that can detect prey. Right? You know, that's why they have them in airports. They can sniff out drugs and explosives. And that nose is there to detect prey. And they also have ears that can hear prey off in the distance. They can hear frequencies that human beings can't detect. So human beings have cute little noses and cute little ears, but we're relatively insensitive because you don't have to sneak up on a strawberry. It's just like right in front of you. Now, I asked the paleoanthropologist Richard Leakey, how did people become carnivores? He said, Neal, we are not carnivores. We have never been carnivores, but the Stone Age gave us arrowheads, and that allowed us
we're a rather slow bipedal hominid. We're not fast like a cheetah or a lion, but that allowed us to kill prey at a distance, and then you can gradually catch up. And with axes and knives and things, we could eat meat, but we still have the coronary arteries and intestinal tracts of herbivores, which is why when we don't eat that way, we get sick, okay? So for those of you who are interested in this, and may have been dragged here by a friend, and you're wondering what this vegan thing is all about, we have a 21-day vegan kickstart, which is free at pcrm.org, and free apps, and it's non-commercial, we're not selling anything. And it's in English, Spanish, Mandarin, Japanese, and also one for people from the Indian subcontinent with Indian recipes. And about 600,000 people have done it, and I would invite you to share this with your not quite yet vegan friends. And if you are a caregiver, like a nurse or a doctor, share this with your patients, it'll change their lives. Okay, thank you. The last thing, I just want to take a couple of minutes and talk to you about a new concept that we're playing with that I have not yet debuted anywhere, but I want to see what you think of this idea. It's called universal meals, and here's what I mean. You can go into any restaurant, and our populations are more diverse than they ever were in the past. And there are people on every airplane, or in the airplane club, or in every school of all different races, all different religions, all different ethnicities, and so forth. And if you look at what they want to eat, well, a vegetarian doesn't want meat, and a vegan doesn't want animal products at all. And many people of color will avoid lactose because they don't digest it very well. And if I'm gluten-free, I don't want wheat or other gluten sources. And let's say I'm allergic to foods, I might need to avoid things. If I'm Jewish and observant, I don't want pork, I don't want shellfish. If I'm Muslim, I don't want pork, and I don't want any alcohol. If I'm Hindu, I don't want meat or eggs. If I'm Ethiopian Orthodox, animal products are out certain days of the week. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, what if we had foods that worked for everybody? Here's what I mean. Right now, you go into a restaurant, and the waiter says to you, I'm sorry, all the soups have dairy in them. Or you go on your flight, and the flight attendant says, well, if you wanted a vegetarian meal, you're supposed to call in advance. Just suck it up, Buster. Wait. I think we can solve this. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to say which foods work for everybody. Okay, Hindu person says, I don't want any beef. Let's get rid of that. And okay, if I'm Muslim, I don't want pork, and I don't want shellfish if I'm Jewish also. And if I've got a peanut allergy, get rid of the peanuts. And if I'm going to avoid gluten grains, we're going to get rid of that. And what if I'm vegan? I don't want the dairy. Get rid of those eggs, get rid of the fish, get rid of the honey. And what that leaves me with are vegetables and fruits and legumes, that's beans and peas and lentils, and also the non-gluten grains. And what would that look like? Well, that would actually be pretty good. I can maybe have some sweet potato soup, or I could have so many different things that you can imagine a person making, and I can have rice and beans and many things that could be served on every airline, in every restaurant, in every school. So that instead of going down the aisle on my flight, and they're saying chicken, beef, chicken, beef, chicken, beef, why not have, if you're going to have an omnivorous dish, complement it with a universal meal that will work for absolutely everybody. And I was talking with some friends who are flight attendants, and they said, that would make my life so easy. Because they're tired of not being able to satisfy the person whose meal wasn't there. So what successful look like is you're on your plane, and do you want the vegan chili? It's a universal meal, it's very popular. Oh, this job got so much easier. This place is fantastic. So, what do you think? The universal meals work? The last thing that I want to say, apart from thanking you and thanking the organizers for putting together this wonderful event, is I want to say that I hope you found this useful. However, the people who need this the most are not here. The people who need the power of a plant-based diet, the people who need it the most, to tell you the truth, they're 12 years old. and they're in school, and the foods that they are learning are normal, are foods that are starting to clog their coronary arteries. They don't feel it yet. And foods that are increasing the likelihood that they'll develop cancer when they're a little bit older. And then when it happens, they think, well, is it genetic? What is it? And we pass this from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. And the answer to this problem, and the answer to the environmental problems, which now you would have to live in a cave to not know that the environmental change is real. And the answer to the cruelty to animals, which even the most hard-hearted person has to acknowledge, is absolutely off the scale. The answer to that is not to just wave our finger and guilt kids and say, why don't you do better? The answer to that, in my view, is to educate and then to explore, to try new things. There are all kinds of new foods at the store. There are new things to try. There are new cookbooks. There are new websites and new recipes. And there are new videos, like What the Health of Forks Over Knives, and so many things that we can share around and we can have fun with it. And once we've discovered things that really work, then we can share them with other people. And we can have a blast learning about the new tastes. And yes, there will be the occasional dud along the way. But is this not true? Once a person takes this power into their hands and they realize, this is good for me, but their worldview starts to change. You start to think so much more broadly, and it makes us better people in every way, not just towards the earth and the animals and our own health, but also towards other people. And we are talking about nothing short of a revolution in human civilization. It's taken us a long time to discover we've kind of made some mistakes, but it's never too late to change things. And I thank all of you for being part of this and for allowing me to share this time with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple of questions time. We can't get them